Okay, we're going to go over a video or go over an essay that is, I'd say, more in the middle range to something like struggling, because most of the essays that I've talked about so far, they're on the upper end of the spectrum. Like, you're expecting the student to already have an excellent grasp of the English language and to be very capable. Sometimes you don't always get essays like that, and that's not a knock against a student, because I work with mainly all students who don't speak English as their first language, and you know the control, precision, expertise with the language is not as high as the Chinese would be. So that, it's not nothing against the student themselves, but it's sometimes a circumstance, sometimes it's different motivations. But anyways, here's a student who is trying very very hard with both the topic and the content and the English, but ultimately it fell short in the last draft, and I'm going to explain why. In the last draft, the student tried very hard to um, deliver the personal statement, but I've answered the questions, like, I've said things like, put the prompt, which prompt are you answering, what are you trying to show, what are some personal qualities, what personality characteristics, accomplishments, future plans, what will you contribute, how do you fit, all these questions you want to address in a personal statement. But the student just hasn't been able to capture most of that. So, you know in the first rendition of this essay, it was just, I can I have an interest in architecture, sketching, and that's it. So I want to see more. So let's see what he does. During my childhood, my mother always took me to Book City to read books. Book City is the main source of information in the whole city of Shenzhen. Book City provides citizens with multifarious, so you shouldn't use words like multifarious if you're not familiar with it. Does it fit in this particular sentence? It's redundant, because with multifarious or various books, why are you saying multifarious? It's out of context. It doesn't make sense with the rest of it doesn't fit with the rest of the sentence, or the way this is going so far. Can it work? I mean, you have to change everything to that type of wording, but I would recommend against it. So just strike it out, delete it. Like most children, I had an obsession with humorous comics such as Father and Son. Okay, that's a good example. I said specifically to add an example to provide clarity and detail. So I would go a little bit further and explain that a little bit if it's important to him. I mean, he said it's an obsession, but what purpose does it serve? The purpose of this is to show contrast, and I'll show you how in a little bit. I once went to Book City, and my eyes were caught by a book about architecture that contained innumerable houses with extraordinary structures and designs. Actually, Father and Son has illusion power to it later on, and we'll see how that works, because the idea of father and son is really important to this student, and it'll be evident. When I read this book, I was amazed by the content. Basic building structures such as this, um, okay, the way you want to word that, such as the structures of a Catholic church, um, of the Chinese traditional buildings, and so forth. You probably want to give one more example, because things usually operate in sets of threes. Um, it just flows better like that. But you don't have to. During that time, my parents were so poor that the whole family lived in a small and narrow house. Houses aren't really narrow. Alleyways are narrow. Streets are narrow. Minds are narrow. But houses aren't narrow. They can be, but that's a narrow house. Have you ever seen a narrow house? I haven't. So be accurate with your descriptions. However, I made a decision to build a house that all of design and minuscule details is monitored on my own to my parents. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Minuscule is actually used well in this situation, and despite the fact that I always had conflicts with my parents, so you transitioned to your parents here, and it wasn't that smooth of a transition. Notice how you don't have any paragraphs. That means this is all one idea. You go to a new paragraph when you go to a new idea, and you kind of just talk about your parents out of nowhere, and you want to transition into it. You want to go a little bit smoother. Um, the way you have it, it's not bad because it makes sense, your train of thought, but tangentially, it's not smooth. Despite the fact that I always had conflicts with my parents, they never became agitated. My parents just firmly believed that they should satisfy me or my brother's eagerness, even though they would pay a high price for it. When I pursued my dream, I was told that an architect must be proficient in sketching. So you talk about things kind of like randomly. It feels like I don't know why it's going there. Therefore, my parents made a decision to let me go to a class about learning sketching without hesitation. Okay, some action. I had passion for my sketching class at the beginning of starting it. Redundant. That's redundant. Take out beginning or start of it. You don't need both. I devoted myself to practice and to study sketching. One day I was sketching as usual. I crossed my legs and I felt uncomfortable even though I had changed different postures. I carried away by vapid sketching. I'm not very familiar with that word. If you feel comfortable using it, go ahead. I don't know. I can guess what it means. Something pleasant. Something like losing like flow, I would say. I would describe it like that. But anyways, I was tired of copying or imitating those objects. Disappointingly, I gave up sketching. So like sketching comes, sketching goes, suddenly it's gone. Meanwhile, books of design stimulated my curiosity because of the versatility of the design. At the beginning of imprudently attempting to draw a sketch map of some sort of constructions, imprudently is used properly, but it's again like your transitions don't exist, paragraphs don't exist, structure doesn't really exist, flow doesn't really exist. Why is your vocabulary suddenly so high? So it doesn't. It's like it doesn't fit with the context. And I'm not saying use a terrible word, but you're not going to use this kind of word suddenly like that. I truly realized the importance of pencil sketch. I tried to draw a dimensional building that was on the opposite of my home. Opposite to my home, I continued to scratch my head. The sweat ran down like raindrops. Okay, that's a little bit of nice imagery. I amazingly found that I couldn't sketch anything about it, so I picked up my sketching and regularly practiced sketch. So you're saying sketching like 50 million times. Like, what's your point? What are you trying to demonstrate? Like, it's something, but it's not going somewhere. After picking up my habit, I found that I made incredibly minuscule errors. I tried to revise over and over, which was so dull. My brain was filled with my sketch maps, and I felt like my head was about to blow up. My teacher helped me modify my sketch. Sometimes he was irritated and lost his patience, said, "Please do not forget the creative sketch. Please use your head." I was ashamed of my mistakes. Even I didn't muster up my courage to face up to my teacher. I just stood before him with head down. My hands were trembling. I stood and consoled myself, trying to let my unhappiness go. I trusted that only by practicing, revising again and again, can I have strength to bounce back. Basically, my dream is my powerful strength source to support me. I bravely accept real me, not brave, not confident, not mature, but absolutely persistent. I really like that actually. That's something that works. I can be responsible for my perseverance. That is key to my success. I think what you wanna do is show a little bit more of persistence. So you do it's reading this is a little bit frustrating, but I do feel your persistence, which is good. So you've demonstrated it. How can we make it better? Let's continue. I can be responsible for my perseverance. That is key to my success. So how have you succeeded? How is perseverance? How do you demonstrate it? This is not really a story. You're listing a bunch of things that kind of happen to you in short bursts of sentences. Like they could have happened any day. Like my brain was filled with sketch maps, and I felt like it was gonna blow up. That could happen any day. My teacher helped me modify my. It's not a real story. It's just a bunch of things happening. Not mature, but absolutely persistent. I can be responsible for my perseverance. That is key to my success. And now, not only do I want to achieve my goal, but also I'm willing to combine Oriental culture with Western culture and a new building style. That sounds pretty cool. So I'm ready for next stage. The next stage, I need a chance to study something about foreign buildings, such as structure, style, unique features. As a Chinese, I am familiar with my national building, but lack of information about foreign styles. It is possible that I can deeply understand only by reading books. Therefore, I will fight for my dream and leave for overseas countries to observe essence of Western building with my assistance. Much improved, much more improved. So how are you going to improve this even further? You need to break it down into paragraphs. You need to structure it. You need to organize it. I gave you the student an original structure ready. It wasn't followed as tightly, which is okay, but you need to make sure that your train of thought flows and that I'm following where you're going. Your ending is considerably stronger because you have um, a point, which is persistence, and also it shows why you're going to America. Now fill that in with some kind of story. Like, what was there more than just beads of sweat falling down like raindrops? Your teacher saying one thing to you, your brain being ready to explode. Those are all general things that could happen to anybody in any subject. So be more specific to sketching, drawing, architecture, and your love for it. And when you love something, it will really pop out. So try that, and let me know how it goes. Okay. So number one, break it down, organize it. Two, elucidate by using a story. Maybe one story, maybe two stories, but the point is be engaging. Okay. Good luck and